So, if you're anything like me and you've considered making a podcast, but you honestly just don't know where to start, well, I'm here to tell you about Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast, and let me just explain to you why. One, it's free, and honestly, who doesn't like free? There's content creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or even your computer. So you honestly don't even need some fancy, crazy equipment just to get started. Anchor is also super dope because it'll help you distribute your podcast. It'll do it for you so that your podcast can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many other platforms. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast in one single place. So remember, download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Messy and Mindful. It is your host, Renala Finkham. If you have not done so already, make sure that you press the little subscribe button so that you know when I post my next podcast episode. Anyways, on that note, today's guest is basically family to me, but I'll let him introduce himself. So go ahead.
Hello. How you doing? My name is Anthony Dongfack. I am the founder of Golden Goals Career Coaching, and thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
I'm excited. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before we get into today's topic, I want to start off just kind of like with some icebreaker questions so like I can get to know you a bit better and the guests can too. Well, first off, what's a hobby that you have?
A hobby. I like to watch anime. I've been watching a lot of shows. I've been watching anime since I was a child. So that's definitely a constant pastime for me. Another thing I like to do, which most people might not consider a hobby, but I definitely do, is community service. I've been doing community service for a minute, so just like anything, even now it might be a little harder to like do community service, but
Right.
we do like remote donations, and I started a group on campus called Slice for Boston that essentially what we do is we take food out of the dining halls in the colleges that we go to in Boston, and we store those up over time, and then we give those out to people that experience homelessness in Boston. So we kind of just
Mm,
a remote way to do that over during the time of the pandemic, where we have everyone just donate to like a link to maybe all one account on behalf of Slice for Boston, and then maybe someone else can go out and give it on behalf of everybody else. So it's just things like that, being able to help out the community. I find that to be a fun pastime.
right. That's not the average person's pastime, but I still think that's super dope and super cool.
Thank you.
Is that busy for you? Like, do you find that?
No, I don't find that to be busy. It's it really helps me actually just kind of relax. It's a fun thing to
Mm.
do. That's probably the only thing I really go out for, besides like
Mm.
maybe the mail or some food. So
Okay. What's a secret talent that you have?
secret talent. I don't really got secret talents. There's like this parlor trick I can do with the pen, where like I make it look like it floats under my hand. But that's really my only my only secret talent.
I was not expecting you to say that.
Yeah, no, it weirds people out, but I've always been able to do it.
Well, that's cool. Okay, so I kind of briefly touched on this at the beginning, but I was like, you're basically family. So, with that said, how do we know each other? Let the people know.
We're cousins. We
Yay.
are cousins. Nah, yeah,
Yeah.
you visited my place a few times over in Delaware. I visited yours. So yeah, no, that's how we know each other.
You still have yet to come to Canada.
I mean, we came a while back, a long time ago, but
Yes, but not like enough for me to take you places.
yeah, we gotta plan another trip.
Make it happen.
I'm gonna try.
Make it happen. Post COVID, we're waiting on you. Okay, on that topic, COVID has been a big part of 2020, but in spite of that, like what has been a highlight for you in this last year?
Highlights in 2020. Um, I met my girlfriend, so
That's
it's good
cute.
to yeah, it's good to connect with the beautiful black woman that she is. She's very intelligent. She's very dope. Great personality. So I appreciate her a lot. That's definitely one highlight. Another one, just starting the business in general, has been a
Okay,
great thing, especially while I was unemployed. It kind of really helped, with income and just getting back on my feet.
for sure.
And overall, just I think 2020 definitely, I'm sure it's true for a lot of people, just gave a lot of time to think. You know what I'm saying? Just think about the future and think about who I am as a person and just think about life and just kind of, even though everything was kind of crazy, like the fact that we were all inside just really had me inside my head a lot. And sometimes that can be a bad thing for, depending on who you are, but also can be a good thing. So there was a lot of time for reflection for me, and I think I grew from that.
For sure. So, I have to ask the question because I'm gonna ask. The people need to know. So, if anyone knows, well, actually, you guys would know our relationship because you don't know us. Well, you know me, but you might not know Tony. I have to ask you the question: why are you so annoying?
Why I'm
Let
annoying.
me give people context before you answer. So I feel like Tony and I have had like this underlying, like, I don't want to call it a rivalry, but Tony's never nice when I'm around. It's always like gotta catch an attitude, gotta be rude to me. He'll call me. It's like, when someone calls you, you think like they'll call you to check in on you and see how you're doing, but always has something annoying to say to me. So tell the people, why are you mean?
Look, 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 look. You might call it annoying, but I'll call it engaging. All right. I mean, yeah, I would never call it annoying. I don't know where you got that from, but I just like to, you know what I'm saying? I like to entertain, you know. I mean, every time I call you, you do end up smiling, so I guess I did my job, right?
Okay. 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 Also, I have to put it out there while you're on that topic. Since this girlfriend of yours has been a highlight of 2020, I have to, I wanna meet her eventually.
Oh yeah,
Just
definitely.
putting that out there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Anyways, let's get down to business. Okay, so I kind of wanted to touch on more so. Let's start with a bit of like you before we dive into like your business and everything that you do.
hmm
Tell us about your university like background. Like run us through what did you take, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, okay. So I ended up going to Boston University. That was my first choice school. So that's over in uh, major Boston area. I actually though had always wanted to go to Boston. I originally got inspired to come to Boston when I did a high school program that was over at this school nearby called Emmanuel College, in partnership with Harvard Medical School. And essentially, that was my first introduction to, the city of Boston and the colleges in
Right.
Boston, just what the vibe was like. So I was like, ever since that point, I just really wanted to be in Boston. So um, I really prioritized applying to colleges in Boston. So I was really glad that I got in there. And I originally came in as a human physiology major. So like real sciencey, like I was like, oh, human physiology. Like I couldn't find that major anywhere else. So I thought I was real special coming in. I was, real hyped to come. And I came and I really loved the vibe. And I actually ended up going to France to study abroad my sophomore year. And I actually came back and I switched to a French major because I
That's wild.
and I'm pretty sure this is different for you, but I did not grow up speaking French. I knew no French. Like I could not speak the language, so I was not taught it
We
by
know.
my parents. Yeah. So I was like, hey, I realized that while I was over there, I became way more confident in my French speaking skills than I had
Mm,
ever been before. So when I got back and I started taking all science classes again, and there was just like no French, something was missing, and I was losing my French speaking skills, so I didn't want to lose that. So I decided to switch over to a French major, but keep my pre-med status that I had before. Because my eventual goal is to be a doctor, but I still want to be able to keep the learning of the French language as part of my education. So I just switched
right.
that up real quick and actually became a French major. So that's what I graduated with, French major with the pre-med track. And then, yeah, now I'm recently out of college. So I was the class 2020.
That's dope. I think honestly, it's good because just hearing that is kind of refreshing. Because I think traditional pre-med feels this like heated pressure to be what is it, like biology is probably the most common major, right?
Mhm.
um I don't know what it is in the States, but for us in Canada, like the most common pre-med major is bio. Is it the same out here?
It's definitely the same. It's like bio or
Okay.
chem, one of those two.
Okay. But human physiology is interesting you bring that up because I've literally never heard. I mean, I've heard of that as like a course or like,
Hmm.
I don't know. Yeah,
I had
honestly,
never
pretty
heard of
much
it
as a
either.
class. I had never heard of it as a major.
No, actually, I thought it was really dope that was even offered. That was kind of one of the reasons I went so bad. But then I got into it and I was like, all right, well, I mean, this is still mostly like bio classes. Like, really, the only thing human physiology was about it was like the classes you took specifically in junior year and senior year. So everything before that was really just a bio slash chem experience. So
Mm,
I decided, I mean, after a point, that just really wasn't doing it for me. So I had to switch.
right. No, that's super cool. All right. So on that note, so you, I don't want to say you brushed over, but you kind of touched on your business, and I wanted you to kind of just run me through the story behind it. You know, the name, everything. Kind of run us through that.
Yeah, golden goals. So it is actually I've been doing or working on resumes and LinkedIn's and all that type of career consulting for a while now. I really as favors for like friends in college, classmates, things like that. And I would just do it just because I thought it was, I personally found it fun. I also liked helping people in general, like put their, put themselves in a better position. And just like, it
Right.
was very easy to kind of just look at a resume or look at LinkedIn and see how it can be made better. Like it just, I worked with my career development center over in college, so I kind of was used to the way they do things, but I noticed that they weren't always as personalized with their consulting sessions or with their resume reviews as they could have been. Like it was a constant complaint that they didn't really help that much, and it really wasn't
Mm-hmm.
individualized at all. So I noticed that was something that was missing, and that was something that people need, even in college, because even now when it comes to speaking to new clients or to new prospects in the business, the most common thing I hear is, hey, I like this service, but we have those free services here at university, so why should I do it? But I'm like, no, on the contrary, like they're not that individualized, they're not that personalized, like they're very just in and out, and that's what I would
Right.
try to offer differently. So kind of when everything ramped up with the pandemic, and I ended up, I just stuck at home, didn't really have a job. I was like, hey, I realized I have this skill that I do for free all the time, and I didn't even realize that people actually pay for this skill. So I essentially just
Wow.
turned it into a business. So I called it Golden Goals, because golden, it just, the alliteration there made sense. It just came to mind. I think the whole, golden and the black and gold from my fraternity's colors. So that's kind of where that inspiration came from. But yeah, it just sounded, I mean, it just had a ring to it, and I just stuck with it. So I created an Instagram page. I'm making plans right now to create a LinkedIn and Facebook page just to get a little bigger and expand across
Mm-hmm.
platforms. But that's essentially how it
Mm-hmm.
started. And then my first few clients were honestly free. So because I wanted to get some reviews first, and so I could have some credibility. And then I
Mm.
started charging. So I started charging a little cheap, and then I started ramping up my prices over time as I got more and more people. But we're at about 40 plus clients right now, and hopefully we can
Oh,
double
that's
or triple that.
amazing.
Yep. Hopefully we can double or triple that this year.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
honestly so good.
Thank you.
That actually, I mean, I'm not finishing school for another year and a half,
Hmm.
but I think just hearing that, it's kind of nice to know because I know that when you step out of undergrad, especially people who are doing professional degrees like accounting and, like educators and people like that, you kind of go through this like awkward transition where you have to transition from like undergraduate schoolwork to like being an adult,
Yep.
like a fully fledged adult. And like resumes are a huge, huge part of that transition, to be quite honest. So I think
Hmm.
you're honestly doing something super, super awesome.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. So, did you ever think about making a career switch? Because I know, like, obviously, maybe you never have, but I've always just been curious. Because you kind of touched on you took French as a major, and then, but you're still pre med. did like ever in your undergraduate career did you ever think, I want to switch my career?
Uh, I thought about I thought about it, but I never actually wanted to switch my career. So I had backups, was essentially what I did. So some of the backups were like I could be an EMT instructor because I have my EMT certification because what EMTs can do, and I was EMT for a bit before my license
Mm-hmm.
expired in 2020, actually, which is funny timing. Um, is you can actually be an EMT and get paid for that, and also be an instructor and get paid for that. So that's two jobs in one. You're
Oh
essentially doing the
wow.
same thing, but one is just a teaching position, which is just a few more hours. And then I could also have, I mean, I knew around the time that I was kind of making like thinking about this heavily, I already knew I was gonna have a business. I just didn't know what it was yet. And so I was like, okay, so I could have the business on the side and be an EMT instructor, or I could be a high school French teacher, which was always a backup for me, or I could just be a
Wow.
full-time entrepreneur. So I was kind of just going between the two, between the three, or among those three options. So that was kind of like my backup options. But I definitely,
Yeah,
I always still want to be a doctor. Like being a surgeon is still my ultimate goal, and I don't think I've ever truly wavered in that goal.
that's awesome. I was just curious because I know you have like, I guess I'll say it, you're a man of many talents,
Oh,
whatever.
thank you.
Um,
I appreciate
so I was like curious. I was like, I wonder if she's like, I ever thought about making a career shift. But I think it's super cool that your eye has always kind of just been
it.
on that one thing. Okay,
Absolutely.
so I wanted to kind of just dive into talking about networking because I know your page is like solely, I don't want to say solely, but heavily based on the resume building. But for some reason, like I think about the importance of networking even when I look at your page because I even like know about the group chat you've put me in and stuff like that. So I'm like, he must have some sort of knowledge behind networking, unless I'm wrong. But what has been like your experience with networking? Like, what has networking been like for you? Like, what impacts have you had with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. You hit it on the nail. I mean, I think networking is so very, very key. And we're working on some new networking services right now, to add to the
Mm,
business. But essentially, networking is the key to almost every job because what most people don't realize is that 70% of jobs are acquired through networking and through referrals. The ultimate way
mm,
to get introduced to a hiring manager and introduced to into being a prime candidate for a job position is for your resume to be figuratively handed over this giant stack of resumes that the hiring manager already got as a personal introduction from an employee from that company that knows you. And the best way to do that is through networking. So you have to kind of put yourself out there and meet people, whether or not you initially knew them, and just let them know what you're about. Just talk to them as a person. It doesn't have to be some crazy professional meeting. Like it can be a Zoom meeting, it can be lunch, it could be coffee, and just talk about what your experiences are and what you want to do and what you're interested in. And maybe they have the position that you want, and you're just trying to get
right,
a small look, a small window, a small peer into how their day-to-day experiences are in that company and what that work culture looks like, to see if it's even the
right.
right space for you, because not every company is going to be for
Mm,
you. So it's just important to put yourself out there and be able to have those conversations with the people that can kind of just tell you what's and tell you and also refer you to a hiring manager, to an employer, or to their manager.
mm,
So networking is so very key, and that can be done through LinkedIn, that can be done through different platforms, that can be done through really anything. I mean, even a lot of people, when it comes to networking, they think it's this whole businessy thing, this whole professional thing, but it can be
yeah.
lateral. Lateral networking is literally just looking to your left and to your right. Like if you're in high school, who did you go to high school with? Who are you friends with? All right, cool. You're in
Mm,
college now. When's the last time you talked to your high school friends or your high school classmates? Maybe they have a sister or a brother that's in a managerial position. Maybe they have, their father is working in a law firm that you want to work at, or their mother is working as a doctor at the hospital you want to work at. So you gotta remember that you never know who's going to introduce you to who. So it's always important to kind of just leverage that at all times.
I think it's super cool that you mentioned that because I never looked at networking as like just my inner circle.
Mhm.
I think what was always overwhelming for me when I thought of networking was like, I really have to branch out. And some people like, I mean, I know you have to get uncomfortable and get your feet dirty to like to see bigger results or whatever people always say, but I think it's kind of nice to hear someone say, okay, like networking can just be in your circle, like start small,
Yep.
build your way out.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think so. On that note, do you think there's any cons though with networking at all, or have you found any like negative things that people should watch out for, or like things that aren't really spoken about?
I would say the main cons to networking is just the amount of time it takes. Like you can really get lost if you do it too much, or if you for example, like if you're networking all the time, you might notice that you're becoming a little bit robotic, and and each individual experience might become a little bit less personal. Like you might sound very
Yeah.
just automated, scripted, things like that. So you want to make sure that you're not showing burnout per se, or just like you're not showing that you're just talking to just to get somewhere. Like you need to make sure that every experience is personal, every experience is unique, and that you're coming to every single new conversation or new meeting with a fresh mind. That's about you and that person, and not just you trying to get somewhere. So that would be the main con that I know of, and it just takes so much time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's a whole process. I mean, reaching out, meeting up, following up, and then doing that every single time with every single person. I mean, it takes a lot of energy, and that's why a lot of people don't really network as much or as much as they would want to, which is why we started a service, which is actually an auto networking service, where essentially people sign up on a subscription basis, and we network for them so that they don't have to. We just put them on like Zoom calls
Mm,
or meet us with the people that they want to talk to. So that's actually a new networking
mm.
service that we're starting up that we we launched it a week ago. We already have two clients for it. So I think it's going to be
Oh
very
wow.
successful. And it really helps out because I mean that's one of the hardest parts of networking, is just taking the time and energy to put in all the follow through of reaching out, making the meeting,
Yeah.
being at the meeting, being ready for the meeting, and then following up. So
You brought up two good points. One, you started off talking about how it's super important to make sure that you're building connections. Because I know for me, like through the podcast, I've gotten DMs about people like asking me to, like look at their page or to like get to know their podcast more or to use this service that they're using or whatever, and they're kind of promoting it to me. And once I kind of like, they'll always start with like a super like genuine like, hey, I've checked out your page, blah blah. And then the second message, when after I've agreed to, getting to know whatever they're promoting to me,
yep,
they'll send me this long paragraph that you can tell was copy and pasted and
mhm,
it's being sent to like 15 other people.
yep,
And that's kind of where I feel like you lose me because now I know that like you're just trying to fill a set of numbers. And I think as individuals, we want to feel important. We want to feel like, okay, if I sign on to this, like there's, like you said, like there's potential for a follow up. But when you send me like this long drawn out message that I know you just literally just changed the name of hey so and everything else is like the same, it doesn't feel personalized. It doesn't feel like there's anything in it for me. You know what I mean?
yep. Especially when they forget to change the name. Oh, that's the worst. That's the worst.
Have you had that happen?
They got like a whole nother
That's
name in there.
embarrassing.
Nah.
That's I hate that. I really hate that. And
Sometimes
then
I
you also mentioned,
sometimes I let people go though, because I was in a
what do you mean?
sales position before, and I kind of understand. So like sometimes I try to like give them a second chance, and then they still fail. Then it's like, all right, I might not have to talk to you, but um,
Right.
sometimes I let people go just because I know. I mean, you never know what happened. Maybe it was just a typo. I don't know, but I mean, you want to avoid that. Is the point that I'm assuming you were making.
Exactly. Just avoiding that. And I think you also mentioned it's like following up. I think that's a huge thing in a lot of things in life, but especially in networking. I'm no expert, but I know for me, like I am pretty proactive about like reaching out and getting to know people. But then it's like consistency,
Hmm.
that becomes tough.
Yep.
And like making sure you're actually being intentional, that can get really hard because again, sometimes it's not like your lack of genuineness, but it's literally just your lack of time.
Mm.
You feel like you don't have time to be reaching out. You kind of already got what you wanted,
Right.
so you move on. You know.
Right.
So I hear that. Okay, so let's go back a little bit to like your post grad life? You talked about starting your business and doing all that stuff. What other things have been, or not what other things, but what is one thing that's been kind of hard for you since you finished undergrad?
I would say just when it comes to the transition to quote unquote adult life, I think it's kind of crazy that I mean literally your level of productivity and the strength of your mental health is directly tied to your living situation. Like if you, I mean, you can't even like it's so hard to like even just take a bit of work or even like it's you're always worried that you might not pay a bill or you might not
Right.
make rent or something like that. So it's just crazy that like, back in college, like if you messed up or you even let's say you just had a crazy semester and that, everything just went wrong. I mean, you're not gonna get kicked out. Like you'll get another semester, maybe you get to take leave or something like that. But in life,
Mm-hmm.
you get evicted. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, whoa,
Mm,
like you can't, you don't really don't have that much room to kind of fail. So you just kind of have to keep pushing and making sure that you're, taking care of yourself, but also like being as productive as is necessary to your manager's needs or expectations for whatever job position you may have, because that's your income right there, and your income pays your bills, and that's your cost of living. And if you can't pay your cost of living, you can't live the way you want to, which is, I mean, essentially with food, with water, with heat, with gas,
mm,
with electricity. You could turn the lights on, and things like that. So even just the general essentials that we're so used to having as kids, back in our parents' houses, I mean, those things are so hard to work for. So you just kind of realize what really goes into every single month. Like I think we really took that for granted back in childhood, and now you just kind of you realize in adulthood like how hard it is. So I think that's the hardest thing.
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't fully relate because I jumped right back into school,
Hmm.
but I see a lot of my friends doing it right now, and it's like it's this weird phase because
Hmm.
you're also trying to figure out. A lot of us are still not like fully committed to whatever like career we're in currently.
Yeah,
So I see a lot of that, and it's like okay, you also are like trying to save up money to go back to school, and it feels like this never-ending cycle. And then you're also paying all these bills and
yep,
basically consumerism, if you ask me.
absolutely.
Um, and and also capitalism in itself too. So it's like just this like honestly like this just never-ending cycle that feels like it really is just it's gonna be your life forever. And even me, I think about it. I'm in school right now, and I still think about it because I'm like, wow, like once I finish, I'm just gonna go join all my friends who are paying bills
Right,
and trying to make rent,
right.
and it's kind of sad sometimes in
Yeah,
the weirdest way. But
yeah, and
no, for sure that has to be a tough part.
I think that it's also kind of crazy how when you come into, I mean, essentially come into the world, like come into the world meaning transition to adult and to post grad life
Right.
is you realize how financially illiterate we all are. Like everyone has different levels of financial literacy, but most of us were not primed to know pretty much everything about money. So, I mean, when it
Yep.
comes to like student loan plans, and I mean, there's this thing called exit counseling that you get at the end of college, and essentially they explain to you how much debt you have at the end of college, and they like
Mercy.
explain to you what kind of plans you could be on, and how the interest works, and how much it is in total. And you're just like, whoa, look at all these big dollar numbers. Wow, I have to pay this back. Okay. Over time? Oh, okay.
Oh
Wow.
my
So
god.
I'm just paying y'all basically rent for like the rest of the next 10, 20, 30 years. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So, and then you got things like, I mean, I think another thing that is very interesting is how we're all encouraged to kind of get a car like immediately after college or sometime after college, but like a new car with like all the new fixings. But a new car is essentially a liability because it starts to appreciate in value since the second you drive it off the lot, and you got people paying car notes that are 20, 30, 40, 50% of their monthly income. Like you're paying
Wow.
like you're paying another rent bill basically for your car. And
Mm,
it's just like, we're all encouraged to get these new cars. Or you're seeing your friends on Instagram, on Facebook getting new cars, and obviously you want a new car when you could just get a used car that does the same amount of driving. The only difference is maybe you might not impress your friends, but do you really want to pay $500 a month to impress your friends? So it's things like it's things like that. I mean, and also taxes. Who knows how to do their taxes? Like not really.
Not
I
me.
don't have any friends that know how to do their taxes. My girlfriend knows how to do her taxes. That's the only person I know that's my age that knows how to do their taxes. Like it's really great. Like we don't know how to do these things. So just the lack of financial literacy and the fact that, our institutions or most institutions, at least in my experience, have not given us this type of education is not what we're taught to do. It's
Literally.
just it feels like a trap. So
No, it really does feel like a
there's
trap. It's kind of crazy
yeah, there's a lot of
when you put it that way.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of self-education that has to be done right after, and it's a lot. I don't think it should all be on us, but it is.
And like the thing is, I feel like my dad is a walking angel because he really does help me with everything. I had a friend ask me the other day. She was like, "So yeah, this will help with your taxes if you did this, this, this." And then she's like, "So like, how do you usually do your taxes?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't. Like
Mhm.
my dad does.
Mhm.
Like my dad does. I'm 22, about to be 23 in a month, and my dad still does my taxes. I have no shame in my game. But honestly and truly, I was telling my dad how I really wish I really wish once you get out of undergrad, someone could just sit you in an adult 101 class to
Mhm.
just transition through life because you're supposed to learn all of that while working, while paying your bills, learning how to pay your bills, learning like it's just a lot.
Right.
It's a lot. So, going back to like your whole resume building thing, how's that been like impactful? And I don't mean like so much for other people, but for you.
And just being a career coach and helping people with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I really do enjoy helping people in general. It does make me truly happy to, when some of my clients, they'll hit me back and they'll be like, "Hey, I got that job that I was really gunning for. I really appreciate that. Thank you." And that's just really dope. Like, I feel like I mean, that's another thing, and back on the how we're not taught, financial literacy. We're not taught how to put ourselves, um, you know, make ourselves look great on paper, with resumes and LinkedIn's, things like that. Those things aren't taught to us. It's kind of if you know, you know type of thing. So to be able to help someone get
Mm-hmm.
there is a real joy for me. So that's definitely something that's always kept me up and kept me, in a joyful mood to be able to keep doing the work that I'm doing. And also just in general, it's definitely, I mean, money wise, it's definitely helped me out for sure, for sure.
Mm. So are you doing it part time? Like, would you say this is your part time job, or would you say this is your full time job, and the job you're in right now is your part time?
I would say it's part time. The job I'm in right now
Okay.
is full time, and then the business is part time. It definitely helps to have secondary income. I definitely
Yes, sir.
encourage anyone and anybody that is able to get some secondary income to get some secondary income because it's cool to rely on, your primary source of income, your main job, but if you can have some extra income, and that can be for whatever you wish, that can be to help out family, that can be to, stop your bank account from getting killed by all those Uber Eats deliveries because that's 30 to $50 per meal when you could be getting that 10 meals from Trader Joe's for the same amount. So really anything like any type of skill you have that can be turned secondary income, it can just be so very helpful. And that's one other thing that we are not taught. So being able to just put your skills to use and being able to put my skill to use to help people, but also help myself in my way of living, um, is just a win-win.
I hear that. I hear that. Okay, so how can someone who like hasn't like really jumped into the world of networking? You kind of touched on this before, but what advice would you give to someone? Like, how do they go about it? If I'm someone, I'm like, okay, Tony, I'm Ornella. I know nothing about networking, but I know I want to network. I want to grow my business, whatever. Where would you direct that person?
I direct that person to two places. I direct them to LinkedIn. I direct them to their phone. I'll direct them LinkedIn. I'll be like, hey, make a LinkedIn account and just connect with everybody you know. Just everybody. Just connect with them, update your profile, and just and just talk to people. Like that's really all you gotta do. And something that people don't do is post. So like keep your network involved with your career journey. So people will talk about
Mm,
and I'm not saying like, hey, I really want to, congratulate everybody or not congratulate, not congratulate. I really want to thank everyone that helped me with getting this internship. I really want to thank, let everyone know that I got a job and I'm really proud to say I'm at this company. No, I'm talking about hey, I'm looking for this type of role. Can you all I would really appreciate it if my network would tag some people that are in this industry so I can reach out to them. That's what I'm talking about. That's the type of vulnerability I like to see on LinkedIn because it actually really helps when you see a whole bunch of your friends, a whole bunch of your connections, common people in the industry, and they reach out to you and they're like, hey, Ornella, I'd really appreciate if we talk. I just messaged you. I see that all the time, and it's the vulnerability on LinkedIn that can actually really help you in the long run. So things like that, and then your phone. Look at your contacts. Look at who are your friends? Like talk to them. Say, hey, I'm in this stage of my career. I'm looking for this, and if you even have that type of that's a quick text conversation, and you just say you have one of those a day with a new friend or an old friend. I mean, you might at least once a week, you're gonna get someone that says, "Hey, I know someone in my family that does that. Let me connect you." Or I know someone, I know a past coworker that does that. Let me connect you. That's the easiest way. I mean, it's a quick conversation. It doesn't have to be nothing serious. So those are the best ways I would direct someone that knows nothing about networking. We're talking to people all the time. Even introverts, we all know people. Like we have family,
mm.
So we
Okay.
got to stop putting such pressure on the idea of networking and make it much easier than it is because it's a lot easier than it is. We do it all the time.
Oh, I hear that. So on your page, you had this quote that says, invest in yourself, right?
Yes.
What does that mean to you? Like, define that.
Invest in yourself is just realizing that you are your best asset. Because we all know asset is something that makes you money, liability is something that costs you money. You
Mm-hmm.
are your best asset. I mean, you create your income, you work your job, you work your business, you you control your life. So why would you not invest in making yourself better so that you can do the things you need to do better? And that can be with therapy. I mean, everybody should get therapy. That's your mental health, and that's something that and I think a lot of people may have even realized this in the past year. That's something we overlook, and
Mm-hmm.
it can really cost you in the long run. So, I think a point that someone close to me made is that don't just get a therapist when everything's bad. Get a therapist when everything is good, so that you can prevent things from getting bad. Or you can be ready and have someone ready to go to consult when things get bad. So and also another point that someone made is, someone asked, "Hey, do you love yourself?" And the other person would be like, "Yes." They'd be like, "Okay, do you invest in yourself?" And they'd be like, "Nah, not really." And they'd be like, "Okay, well, do you make time for the things you love?" And they'd be like, "Yes." And I'd be like,
Mm.
"Okay, well, you said you love yourself." And they'd be like, "Oh, okay." There's a disconnect there, So
Yeah.
important to invest in yourself. That can be mental health, that can be professionally, that can be spiritually with whatever, walk of religion that you may take. That can be anything. So it's important to invest in yourself. That's one of our mantras in the business.
I think that that's really dope that you bring that in there because I think if there's anything we've all can say is that mental health has definitely been much more publicized and normalized in 2020, and I think we can credit that to the pandemic heavily.
Hmm.
So um, I think that's a very important point because even me, like my mental health was the biggest reason why I started the podcast, and so I totally relate to that. And I think that's super cool that um, you were able to bring that up with like your networking thing and your business because I never would have seen that had you not explained it that way. But I think people don't realize that like investing in yourself is actually you contributing to so much more than just like building a resume or building your resume is like is contributing to you investing yourself. Like there's a long time like pay with that, I
Yep.
think. And it's in the little things like that. So super cool that you're doing that, honestly. So how
Absolutely.
has starting like professional career coaching, how has that like benefiting you in terms of like skills you want to take into your career?
I think it just really helps me when it comes to being a people person. That's something I really pride myself on being. That's something I've always wanted to take into my future career and being a doctor, is just being able to talk to people, getting to know the real them, getting to know the story and really hearing them, you know. I mean, something that I really take pride in with when it comes to my my individual consults with my clients is actually breaking down every single thing that they did on their resume, like talking about it, like even something as little as being maybe a member on some student organization. I asked them like, hey, like what did you do, what were your experiences like, what were the meetings like what was created, how many people were at the meetings. Like I want to hear the intimate details on every
Right,
single thing on your resume, and I want to hear your life story through your resume, because your resume is your life story. And I think it's hard for all of us to kind of talk about ourselves sometimes. So when you kind of turn it into a conversation the way I do, and through the business that we do, it makes it much more meaningful. It makes it much more intentional. It's a lot easier to put on paper and really describe it. So, and I feel like that will really definitely translate to when I'm in a doctor position and I'm able to, really hear the experiences of my patients. I mean,
right.
especially, I mean, we've seen, like, especially with like racial health and equity, that all these people of color are experiencing or not experiencing the level of attention that they want or they deserve from
That's the one.
health professionals. So to be able to really hear somebody, and then when they're saying, "Hey, I'm complaining of this," to actually hear them and actually listen to that and address that. And that's the kind of energy I kind of put into my resume contests, my consults, and my LinkedIn consults, is to really hear them and really hear their experiences and kind of just address those things and then put them on paper and represent them in the best way possible.
Wow, no, that's so dope. I honestly really think that's super cool. I'm proud of
Mm,
you. I think you're doing awesome.
thank you.
For those of you who are listening, make sure that you go follow. What is it? Is it Golden Goals on Instagram?
Yeah, so you can find it at Golden Goals. So the name is Golden Goals. The title will come up as Golden Goals Career Coaching, and the official tag is at Your Golden Goals.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for doing this with me. Thank you for sharing. And honestly, like you've really made me think about it. I might just be sending my resume your way when school's done.
Please
It's
do.
but yeah, I'm rooting for you, you know. And if you need anything, you can always, hit me up.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for having
so of course. Well, thank you all for listening, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
me. Bye.